When networks are carrying more traffic than ever and AI workloads are exploding, observability teams are under pressure to understand what's happening in real time. But the problem is, most tools stop at dashboard. They don't truly understand or interpret the network. And that's where Kentik enter the picture. They are changing that with a new Agentic AI Advisor, which is designed to actually understand network behavior, not just summarize logs. And today we have with us Mav Turner, Chief Product Officer at Kentik, to talk about this new AI Advisor. Mav, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about this.
It's my pleasure, and I am looking forward to this discussion. Can you talk about what exactly are you folks announcing, and how does this AI advisor actually work under the hood?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try not to go too long because it's a lot of exciting stuff here. But the high level understanding is, Kentik's been around for about 10 years collecting internet data at scale, internet traffic data at scale from service providers, from the largest Fortune 500 companies, et cetera. And so we've had this great data set that we can really answer a lot of good questions on, but you'd have to manually ask the question, right? You have to go in, understand a little bit about the infrastructure, slice and dice the raw data. And then some of our early AI technology before LLMs came out, or right when the LLMs came out initially, was a little bit more ask and response, right? You could ask it and it would give you a dashboard. And that's great. That's, still very, very valuable to customers. But what we've done most recently is take our platform and expose all of that raw data, all of that really contextually relevant data that's enriched with information about the network, about the infrastructure, and exposed it to the reasoning models that are now available with the latest and greatest foundational models in a way that goes from just saying, hey, how much traffic is coming from this interface, to what problem is in my network? Where can I optimize? Where are the risks? Right? How should I think about optimization path with peering relationships between different providers? Where can I move traffic in order to optimize costs? Where are there security risks in my environment? You can ask these open-ended questions. And because the latest generation of AI models can reason, and because we've exposed that data and all of that contextually relevant information to these AI models together, we can get really amazing responses that frankly surprised us how valid and helpful these things were. And we've added a lot here. I won't get into too much under the hood, but the short version is we take these foundational models, expose it to the raw tools about the different data sets that we have across our platform, and then give a well-reasoned response to a user to understand why is this happening. So it doesn't just spit out an answer. It tells you the logic and the rationale behind what you need to do and why, and the data it's using.
What I'm also curious about is that, does it stop at giving advice, or it can also help in taking action, or taking action is up to the teams?
Right now, taking action is up to the team. We're really focused, and our mission is really around giving the best data and the best advice, which is why we call it AI Advisor. And so internally in the Kentik system, we will very soon start to say, would you like me to change just the threshold on this alert? Would you like me to create this dashboard for you? And within our own kind of ecosystem, make some small changes. But as far as orchestration and actually driving network changes, we want to give you the best data and advice, but we kind of want to draw a line there, at least in the near term, because we think that our unique strength is in the depth of the data and the context of the data we have about the network. And so what we really want to just lean into that strength and provide as much as good as advice as possible, but then all the complexity of orchestrating across different vendors, we want to leave up to either our partners or up to the customer who have their own orchestration layers.
A lot of tools, they just add, chat with your logs feature. How is your approach different from a standard LLM wrapper, and how do you handle the hallucination part? Because that is the most challenging part or problem when it comes to critical networking operations.
Yeah, and we've experienced that as well, right, in our development process here. So again, some of the first large language model applications that we had were that similar wrapper chatbot experience to get access to the raw data, and that was helpful. But really, what we've been working on the last year, 18 months, is a couple of things to provide significantly more value to a customer. One is our system prompt, right? And how we can provide a massive amount of tuning in order to ensure that the AI system stays on track. The other part that's really important is that it understands the data that it has access to, right? So it understands that semantic model of the network, and it understands what data it can answer questions about. And that's taken a lot of tuning and working with customers to make sure that, when you ask it a question, it doesn't say, oh yeah, and give you some impossible hallucination answer, that it knows what it knows, therefore knowing what it doesn't know and being able to recognize those situations and make recommendations. For example, several months ago, we were working with a customer in an environment, and advisor asked for the configs of the device because we weren't at the time, although that's changing. At the time, we did not have the configurations. So it'd say, if you gave me the configs, I could tell you what change to make, right? But it knew that it didn't have that versus, making some random configuration change recommendation. So there's a lot of parameters and guidelines that we've put into the process so that when the system is responding, it's checking itself against those responses, and again has the data, knows the schema in a way that it knows what it knows.
The fact is that Kentik is ingesting trillions of data points every single day. How does that volume and granularity of data change the performance and accuracy of the AI advisor?
That's one of our kind of secret sauces, right? The scale and the massive amount of data that we have in order to make these recommendations. Let me be clear on one thing: we're not training any sort of foundational model with our customers' data, right? We use our customers' data to help their specific environments, but we're not pushing that into some foundational model that it gets locked away in. But because it has access to so much different examples and scenarios, we can really get a level of granularity and fine tuning that without that would be impossible, frankly. And so we can see all these different scenarios and we can see how they would play out. And it's the context and the understanding of the network that these different scenarios give us, right? That long tail allows you to be more successful. So yeah, it's that breadth and depth, right? It's not just, okay, here's trillions of data points a day, therefore now it's great. It's trillions of data points in context of the network, right? Whether that's your LAN WAN team, your infrastructure teams, your data center teams, your internet edge teams, whatever team's doing this, we have this unique perspective on the internet, right, and on corporate networks that we can bring. That advisor, when it's looking and responding, has had that experience and stays kind of again back in the guardrails of understanding where it's at when it's responding to these questions.
There is a huge gap in supply and demand of skilled tech folks either way. When it comes to some of those even more specialized field like networking, it becomes even more challenging. Many organizations, they don't have enough seasoned network engineers. How far can your AI advisor go to help those teams to also bridge that gap till they fill it?
Yeah, so I would say definitely augmentation, but can also fill the gap where you don't have enough resources, right? I haven't talked to a team yet that said, "Oh yeah, we have plenty of capacity on our team." There's no issue there. Everybody is being asked to do more with less, right? Common theme in the industry. And so to me, it's the augmentation and extension of those skills. It's less about, okay, bring this in and now you can fire half of your network team, right? Like that's not the story here. The story is very much bring this in and maybe now they can actually do the things that they're supposed to do and actually have more time. And so a lot of the things we look at is when we look at the workflow in a IT team and a network team, how can we take as much off of the plate of these network engineers and push that down to either more junior technicians or to frontline technicians as possible? And I think with Advisor, we've seen that play out with customers where instead of something having to be triaged or pushed up or taken days to resolve, you can actually do that in the context of a standard troubleshooting ticket where it can ping our advisor, get information it needs. Is this service down? Is there an issue here? I'm having this context. That's something a frontline tech can use natural language to ask in the context of the ticket, get that information, and now you don't even have to do an interrupt on your senior network engineer and your other architects, et cetera. So removing a lot of these interrupts off of those folks so they can spend more time on these higher activity tasks. And the cool thing is Advisor can help them as well, right? But it's from a completely different perspective. That's from the network design. How can I redesign the infrastructure to be more performant? Which is a very different than a trouble ticket, outage situation troubleshooting, but it can provide these different users, these different contexts. So it's definitely an augmentation, but but it's something we think, given that skills gap that we're seeing, can help junior people who don't know the network. They don't know the details and the configuration. They just know they've got a ticket that said this user can't get to the service. Is it the network, right? And so this can really greatly reduce those loads by providing that in real time in context of the troubleshooting scenario.
I am also a hobby woodworker. I'm not a skilled woodworker. I have power tools, I have fest tools, I have CNC and laser machines. They help me, they don't turn me into a full-fledged woodworker. They don't expect me, but they do fill that gap of me not actually knowing. So the tools, as long as you're looking at tools as tools, so they do augment. So thank you for taking that question. Now, while we're talking this point, when the Kentik AI Advisor surfaces an insight or recommends an action, how should think about validating it? Because trust is important, security is important. Also, what level of autonomy is realistic today with AI Advisor?
Yeah, great question. And by the way, I love your woodworking example. It's a great comparison. So when you think about Advisor today, and kind of where we are, even just around the corner here, when we think about autonomous, we think about, I want autonomous investigations. I want, instead of reactive, wait to ask a question and answer, I want proactive. Hey, it looks like there's a problem here you should check out, right? Trending issues, recommendations that are proactive that the customer or the user may not have thought to ask or may not have seen. And so that's, to me, this really exciting thing about what's right around the corner here, based on this foundation that we've delivered, is the ability to be autonomous in the recommendations, right? The advice being autonomous, so you're not just having to know what question to ask. As far as autonomously reconfiguring networks at scale, we want to give the data and the recommendations, but that's a whole separate class of problems that we would need to have high validation on before we'd want to unleash, an advisor on going around and reconfiguring internet routing, right? So there's a lot of interesting things we see there, and there's recommendations and a lot of advice we can give. But right now, that is very much a human in the loop scenario when we talk about the active changes. But when it comes to the autonomous, that's really where we think about how can we autonomously recommend, how can we, and instead of it being a coworker that's sitting there waiting for you to ask it a question, comes up to you and says, hey, I think we should change our pairing relationship here because we're spending a bunch of money, but we have a free pairing relationship over here if we reroute our traffic, right? That's the type of thing that we really think is, like I said, right around the corner based on what we've launched already today.
You folks started working on these things when LLMs are kind of emerging. Where do you see this is heading as networks become more dynamic and AI driven? What is the next step, next stage, next evolution for agentic capabilities in observability platform, specifically when it comes to network observability?
I think, and I feel like this is a little bit of a cheat answer, but all the conversations I'm having are about connecting these systems together, whether that's MCP or agent to agent, whether that's a customer. A lot of the customers I'm talking to are saying we want to solidify on our one enterprise agent. We don't want to have 20 or 30 different interfaces. We want one, so we can put guardrails and controls and security and information privacy, all of that around that. And then so they want to interact with our agents in a way that allows them to bring in their specific information, their other systems. So I think right now the next thing that is, and it's already happening, but right now it's still more talk than reality when I look at the vendor landscape. Being able to really have agents from these different observability vendors, different CMDB vendors, right? We have a good partnership with ServiceNow, where we've done a lot with their teams and go-to-market and integrations, right? So I think right now we've got this explosion where everybody's got an agent and everybody's got these different things, and I think we haven't quite come to that next stage of evolution where these things start to consolidate from a user perspective. I can stop worrying about who's providing what, and I can be more of that AI architect that is deciding which information should be provided from which systems, which agents I should use to be collaborating with each other. And I think as we look at, again, enterprise scale challenges, that's going to need to be an intentional effort. And there's going to be a consolidation in how these things do. I think, again, MCP gets a lot of coverage today, but when you look at a lot of what vendors are doing, it's kind of mostly just a wrapper to their existing APIs. So I think it's a good progression, but I think that will provide that next level of value in the enterprise is really being intentional about the design of these systems and how they connect and talk to each other and who has what information, and then how they come to consensus on a recommendation across the entire environment. So that's, I don't think it's too big of a stretch. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy there, but that's what I think is the next big thing.
As much as all of us are using AI, I mean, we are in the media business, we use it heavily, it's a powerful tool, but we're also hearing, I mean, you see NVIDIA's, the results, we are also hearing a lot about AI bubble, which might burst. The challenge is that we are depending heavily on AI. If you look at the dot-com bubble back in those days, the fact is today we live in internet, whether we look at Amazon, Netflix, or gaming streaming, we play video games, the cloud gaming is, so yes, we do live in the same bubble that was burst, so yes, those are two different things. A bubble being burst versus the technology totally disappearing. We are not talking about MySpace. How much concern do you hear from your customers who are putting all of their eggs in the AI basket because people are getting worried?
Yeah, I've lots of thoughts on this. So first of all, I think the hype cycle, if you're familiar with the standard kind of Gartner hype cycle, is always valuable when looking at technology trends, right? And I think that we absolutely are going through that cycle much faster than we have with other technologies. Same thing when cloud became a big topic, right? That went faster than the previous trends. But and so I do think when we talk about bubble, we talk about investment going into a market segment to explore and understand the different possibilities. What's really impactful, right? And so the nature of that, when we talk about a bubble implies that everything explodes. Everything goes away, right? Bubble burst, everything goes away. The reality is, I think, much more refined in that the pieces where we ran experiments and tried to figure out what's going on, those things where it wasn't applicable, right? Where the hype exceeded the capabilities or the value wasn't really there. That's the standard process to figure out how technology is going to meaningfully impact the world. And again, just like cloud, just like a lot of other things, I think we'll have the same thing right now. The quote unquote bubble is because we're not sure what's really going to make a difference. So we're trying everything. And this is the process of figuring out standard technology, evolution, what really is going to be an impact on the industry and go forward. So if another way to ask this is, in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, will we still be using AI? Just like, are we still using cloud? Absolutely, right? The internet companies from the dot-com bust, in the early 2000s, those set the foundation for where we're at today. And if you went back to that time and in the middle of the collapse and said, oh yeah, but in 5 years, everything is going to be even more, everybody's going to think, oh, another bubble person trying to prop up this industry. But the reality is, no, we focus on the things that make a difference, and the industry evolved and through this natural selection process. So that's one response to what you said, which I think is really important, is that's a natural evolution of technology. So yes, companies will go under. Yes, companies will consolidate as we figure out who are the winners and the losers in the market. And I think that's a normal situation, frankly. It just happens in our technology industry so much faster than it happens in any other vertical because of the nature of technology. Another way that I think about this when you mentioned this is, when you mention like, hey, as a media and as everybody else, we're going to use AI, and that's not going to go away. Reminds me a lot of the original BYOD trend, right? When we had the enterprise IT, everything's locked down, and then you get a lot of these consumerization services. Everybody's used to Gmail and these consumer apps that are so much more powerful and faster than the enterprise apps were 20 years ago, and smartphones and all of that. And then so we weren't going to go back from that, right? It forced the change in the enterprise market segment. I think we'll see the same thing. I don't think we're going to drop our enterprise AI tools, but I do think it'll be a little bit slower than on the consumer side, and then it'll mature to the level that we want. Because to be honest, I do talk to customers that are still trying to figure out their procurement process. They're still trying to understand the risk, and some customers say, "I don't want any AI right now," because they're trying to figure it out. The reality is they're using AI all over the place, but but they're trying to control it. And so I think that's just a standard, the larger the company, the more risk adverse, the more regulated the industry, the slower they are going to be to adopt it. But I don't think we're going back, right? The genie is out of the bottle on that.
Mav, thank you so much for joining me and breaking down how Kentik is bringing agentic AI into network observability. And after listening to you, it is quite clear that understanding the network at this depth is no longer just a niche to have. It is an essential kind of practice for keeping modern distributed system reliable. And tools like AI Advisor augments your team, and also they can fill some gaps as well. Mav, before we wrap this up, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. My just kind of closing thoughts. If you're an existing customer of Kentik, start using it and give us the feedback, right? We love it. That's how it gets better. And if you're not using Kentik today and you're struggling with insights into your infrastructure, network problems, please give us a shot. We'd love to help you out. Whether you're going headlong into the AI or just trying to get some basic visibility, my hope is that you would try Kentik and you would see the value of how it can hopefully change how you're operating today. That's really what we're trying to do, is change how people operate networks for the better, and take a lot of the load off and give you insights that you simply wouldn't have before. So give us a shot and then reach out. I'm happy to connect with anybody on any of these topics.
So true. And those who are watching, as Mav rightly said, if your teams are struggling with visibility, expertise gap, or growing network complexity, take a look at what Kentik is doing with its new AI advisor. And don't forget to subscribe to TFI, like this video, and share it with your team. Thanks for watching.